Hey, good morning, my neighbors, or at least it will be good morning. Welcome to another episode of BYTTT. Before you take the trade, I am your host, JD the Great, and I have a lot of stuff that I want to go ahead and break out. I don't think the hat is giving too much of a shadow. So we got a lot of work that we're going to go ahead and get to. The first couple of things that I want to see is what is going on with the market because there is so much going on. And go ahead and get this loaded up so I can pull up the chart for y'all. And here we go. So the main part about this is the fact that NQ has been to say on a tear is to be very light about it. You can kind of see we're starting to pop up back into that upside. Um, from yesterday's episode, I explained that you see these two candles, it already tells you a little bit of the story. Here's the fun part about it. This right here is pretty much done. Let me go ahead and unlock this. I can go ahead and readjust this. Oops, wrong button. Got it. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and move our line because right now this is our higher low that's giving us the higher high. Now that we're at 441 as we're just literally just drifting up and continuing to that upside, just leaving these lines so that way y'all can be prepared for it. So this micro trend here just got beat by this major trend retaking this thing. It's almost like, we having a whole entire fist fight where Ali is on one side and George Foreman is on another, and it looks like Ali's gonna go down, and then out of nowhere, Ali is the favorite, and guess what ends up happening? Boom! Get out the way, and then George Foreman falls. Kind of like one of those things, right? Yeah, you might get a little bit here, but it doesn't mean that you're gonna win the whole entire match, and that's what's happening here. We got ourselves a nice little continuation coming into what will be, what time is it? 11:45. So we're starting to get towards the Hong Kong session right before the London session, and technically this is what we want to see is more upside as we continue. Let's go ahead and get into oil. So we talked about oil inventory yesterday, and you can see what happened here. Let me get rid of this opening range. It's a little stale. But we got oil inventory that allow for a micro trend to be formed. So could this be the micro trend that's going to go ahead and push oil out of this $66 range? Maybe, maybe not. Oil tends to kind of range more time than not. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to plan out your trade. But I do like the fact that it's kind of putting a little bit of a step here. Now the oil production is still ramping up, so I think this is just more like people repositioning themselves more than the fact that we're going to turn around. But we'll see. Maybe we'll come back to that 200-day moving average over there. Over here is gold, and gold is trying to make its way outside. But guess what? That wedge is doing its job the way I explained to y'all before, and we're on the bottom side of it. I think this is just them getting cheaper prices so that we can buy it right back up, and that's going to go ahead and let the market kind of rally. If we look over here, we got ourselves silver and still haven't got to that $40 level, and we're kind of consolidating. I'm going to see if silver can get to that $40 level. I would love to see what happens to gold right after. British pound. The British pound is trying to make its move. I don't like the fact that it closed outside. So this can really make the dollar start to rally. We didn't make a bullish divergence if you really think about it. We should have took this high. Sorry, bearish divergence. We should have took this high and then start to work our way down. But it looks like we closed inside the box, and right now the British pound is trying to continue to the downside. Very different than what NQ is doing, a ticker that usually be in sync with the market. Here's Bitcoin. Oh, look at that. There goes that 115 that I was telling y'all about, that it's going to need that relaxation, kick its feet up. it did a lot of work, right? You know what I'm saying? Spent the whole entire year from June at 100K to get to that 122, 123. And if we go back over to April, that was when the real hard work was there. And it was around that 875. And, the boss was kind of beating down on them after it had its time at 108 over in January. So, there was a lot of energy that was expelled, trying to deal with the work that it had to pick up so that way it can make its way upside. And that's exactly what's happening here. Oops, just move my indicator. All right, so we got a nice little push here, and the only reason we're pushing up here is because after doing a whole lot of the work that's necessary, 115, good area to kind of kick its feet up, kind of like a vacation to the Bahamas, dip a toe into the beach and just relax because we got some more work to do. We're trying to get to that 125. I would say the midway point about 114 would be good and get a nice little curl that's stochastic, and then we'll get to that 125. Here is the Russell. The Russell is actually trying to make its way back outside of the order block. I warned y'all a little bit, explained that this area was going to be a tough area because unfortunately this is an order block. Lots of greens, lots of reds when you come and deal with this to the left, and there's some dojis, there's some full candles, there's some reversals, hammers, all types of different candles. So much junk in here that you just can't read. That's your order block, and that's what we're kind of building here, but we're wedging against it. So I think this reversal coming in with the recent Asian session is trying to get back above there, and if they can close inside of that block, there's a chance we can let this golden cross start to sing. And then here we go with the infamous, undeniable, the dollar. It's trying to make its way back up to that upside after hitting my level that I told y'all about, which was roughly around the fact that they're coming back for the fair value gap at 97. A nice little rally from the dollar is probably going to put some pressure on the U.S. markets and start to make them come to the downside. So just keep that in mind. All right, everybody. So go ahead and grab a pen and a pad because I'm going to go ahead and give you the news, and it's coming straight and hot off of the presses. So got quite a bit of things that's coming up. Now, we already came off of jobless claims, and you could kind of see what's been going on with jobless claims. We got bullish for the dollar, which is what's kind of driving the dollar to kind of push back up. But new home sales is what's kind of holding everything back. So I think what's going to end up happening with this bullish for the dollar is going to go ahead and get tempered really, really fast. Because I think they're going to go ahead and give everybody a reprieve. But this is going to go ahead and come right back at that. Because here's the problem that we have with the jobless claim being bullish for the dollar. When we have no one able to get into homes, that's going to be a problem. So like I said yesterday, I was very curious on what's going to happen with new home sales. There's some bill auctions, and it looks like you can get some benefit by putting into bonds over the 8-week one, no, the 4-week one versus the 8-week one. And then we got over here interest rates. It's slightly down, which is cute because this is still not going to move the needle of people buying homes. Here is a bill auction, which is not paying a lot, so people are going to go back into the dollar when they see that. So the 8-year plus the 10-year is probably driving people to go back into that. And Fed balance sheet is still the same. They didn't really do anything as they're trying to divest, allowing for an opportunity to lower interest rates. Now, today is going to be durable goods, and what we're going to be looking for inside of the durable goods is what is our orders? How does it look? So that way we can be able to show if this is going to be bullish or bearish for the dollar. So this is going to be one that's going to be key before we get ready for next week's economic calendar. All right, so let's go ahead and kick the wheels on this as well. We got ourselves first. Alphabet says that the AI arms race is live and well. And that's what you want to kind of hear from one of the leaders in the AI space. They've been working on their Android side, and now their Gemini started to take over. And since they don't have any vehicles like Elon Musk to stuff your Gronk in, I would say for the most part, this is still solid for a company. So as we look at the chart, pull up Google, This was a nice little run up. We got a nice little solid golden cross over here on the daily, and then you can kind of see was kind of making a nice little move to this upside. We kind of rejected it, but I think they came for most of the gap that they could get. But because we still closed inside of it for the most part, I would love to see if we can fill the rest of this gap and get into that 210. That would be probably what everybody's looking for. Part of my trade idea was the fact that we was going to hold this 190 as we were trying to get into the gap. So very interesting ticker. Let's keep this party going. The next one we're going to talk about is India. India expects preferential treatment or preferential tariffs, I should say, in the trade deal with U.S. Says their commerce minister. Now, here's the funny thing about it. India expects preferential tariffs in a trade deal with the U.S., says India's commerce minister. Now, here's the funny thing about this. This is going to allow for the U.S. dollar, which is what we were talking about earlier, to even strengthen even further as the deals start to solidify. And that's the part that I'm very curious about, because with the dollar strengthening, it's going to take something counter effective like interest rate drops to balance off what's going to happen with the dollar. So with these tariffs, that's supposed to strengthen the dollar, allow for them to kind of push, make our reputation credible and everything else, and then we get somebody, either Jay Powell, or if they fire Jay Powell, they're going to go ahead and try to make that relative push to go ahead and bring it back down or balance it in itself. So it's going to be very interesting now that I think about this, because India is now deemed the next place that we're trying to get a lot of our stuff created, especially after the whole China issues. So I wonder how this affects China at the same time. So keep an eye on all your Chinese stocks and everything else, and keep an eye on anything India related. I don't know any stock that's based on India, so I'm probably gonna have to do some research on that. All right, next one. This is what Wall Street thinks about Tesla's second quarter results. Okay, I don't even want to get their results. I want to give you my thoughts in that regard. Now, Tesla, unfortunately, has kind of stubbed their toe, with the fact that their CEO decides to, play politics on TV, right? We had a nice little gap down, even though the earnings was in line. Again, keyword is in line. So this is supposed to be a growth company. They don't pay any dividends. So in line is not what you want to hear. But the good thing about it is it's in line, hit the order block, and then hit the brakes at the same time. So I like where Tesla is right here, because we could get ourselves a nice and solid bounce off of this level. But right now, you already know Tesla can make these gaps and massive moves. I'd rather it give me something a little bit more structured, because it's still, well, by them coming back down to this level, it's adding to that wedge position of that sideways movement. It's probably not the best time for you to step into Tesla. And then the last article I have for you is Intel. Intel beats on revenue, slashes foundry investments, as CEO says no more blank checks. Really? You just now realized that? Shout out to AMD and NVIDIA that kind of been running very, very hot and doing their job. Let's look at Intel here, and yeah, no more blank checks. But because you did that a little bit earlier before you lost 11 cents for your shareholders. And this is the thing that I don't like. Let me bring this over so y'all can see. This is what I don't like with these cartoon characters of CEOs. They'll have some nice little talking points and everything else. Intel reported second quarter results on Thursday. The memo says the first few months of his tenure is going to be not too easy. Intel shares are up 13% so far for the year, but 13% times zero is it's still going to be zero, because I still feel like it brings very little value to the semiconductor space. After plummeting 60% in 2024, its worst record of all. So, what do y'all feel about Intel? First thing I will say is they changed the CEO. We'll see what happens there. Another thing I will say is at the end of the day, they are trying to make a factory in the US, and I don't know at this point. Yeah, you gotta have a good product to be making before you could go ahead and try to scale. Scaling is probably not the best thing to do, and I like the decision of slowing down the chip factory for construction. Is it at the basement? Maybe. Did it try to push up? Possibly. That's a big miss. Again, if you watch my show quite a bit, whenever I see people return money to shareholders, you're telling me that your revenue went up, but you're losing more money. So whatever you gained, you threw it right back into expenses or whatever ventures. There's something to be had there. First thing is, if their revenue is going up and it's higher than expected, then they probably sign some new deals that's going to be giving some dividends later on. No, not dividends physically from stocks, because of course they cut their dividends after losing so much money. I'm talking about pays dividends because maybe they're going to raise their guidance. They're going to have 12, and then unfortunately, my EPS, I'm a little off of the target, but we want to get ourselves back in track and try to budget cut along the way. But continue to grow the revenue, because when you grow the revenue, you're going to have space for you to be able to do other things. So very, very interesting way of looking at it. I know some people that are very sound and they're looking at Intel as a laggard that can pop. I think the opposite. We'll see what happens. But for the most part, this chart does look like they want to make a golden cross on a daily, but we'll see how that goes. All right, let's go ahead and get into the earnings and start looking at some of these tickers here. So BAH is going to be in the morning. Booz Allen kind of looks like a W that's being formed, but you can see we're filling the gap. So I would say keep an eye on that. Their earnings, they're anticipating 1.45 with a estimated revenue of 2.95. So that should be fun. Let's go ahead and go with the next one, AutoNation. Big company. I'm looking for them to have a good day, especially bouncing off this 50 moving average. Probably giving us a little bit of a pullback so that way they can go ahead and give a nice little push to get it to highs. Now, here's a little reminder, we already made all-time highs, so could be good numbers, then hold it down, and then they're going to give a bounce later. Very possible. HCA. Is the healthcare company. It's been on a decline, kind of similar to what's going on with UNH, but I was looking for them to kind of really fill out this gap. By them rejecting the gap the way they are, it's making me think that they don't have anything that's going to really hold them there, because I thought filling of this gap was going to be good positioning for bulls to take over, because the bears had complete control, hence the reason why the drop happened in October 2024, and it's failing to do so. Now that it's below the 200-day moving average, this thing's going to go ahead and drag down. If it doesn't find any support very, very soon, we're probably going to see some lower levels. And then PS 66, Phillips 66, PSX, that's what I meant to say. Golden Cross is finalized. I think there could be a nice little bounce here. I'm looking for the 122 level, but if you want to start scaling in, I don't think that's a bad idea. Just note that the dividends that's going to pay out, which is relatively solid. Actually, let me put this in my watch list. Dividends, not my dividends. All right. Just note that when the dividends are paid out, it's probably going to give you a nice little pullback in that regard. So be conscious of that. Not saying it's going to go ahead and fall, but just be conscious of it. All right, let's talk about Monday. So Monday, there's going to be some earnings that's going to be coming in. We got Tilray. Now this one is fun because I remember I was trading this like crazy, and I had found out that it was under $1, and I was like, oh, I guess cannabis is not the way to go. and I found it a little bit shocking. Now there's a lot of people that's jumping into the space, and you could kind of see they're just suffering overall. Anticipated to lose only 3 cents, but they almost lost $1. That is a 2,000 surprise, and they lost in revenue about 21 million. Not a good thing you want to hear from them. So they're expecting more negative EPS. Hopefully, they rebalance everything there. Um, I don't know. Maybe it's the regulations and everything that's beating this up. But I can tell you this right now: it is a far cry from where it was all the way. You see how many times I had to pull that just to get that there? Look at that. It used to be 200. Jeez. You need a reverse split, or you're gonna go ahead and fall to the OTC. And this is what we're dealing with. Could it give a golden cross? Very possible, but why play with some foolishness just like that? All right, and then the last one I want to bring up is Waste Management. Very good company. I believe, yep, they return money to shareholders and they have a dividends. The dividend is not that great though. I was looking at it, talking to a good friend, and I was like, well, Waste Management is kind of struggling. I was looking for them to kind of pull back into the 200 before they made the bounce, but I think this is not too bad of an area too. It's closing inside of this fair value gap. Probably going to get a nice little push on tomorrow, as earnings will be on Monday. I would not carry anything over the weekend just for earnings on Monday. That would not be a sound situation. All right. Okay, so that's that. Let's go ahead and talk about the earnings cycle. Let me bring up my watch list, and I know I covered a couple things that was going to be coming up on the second month. I want to just kind of give you some honorable mention tickers. One of them is going to be Hood. I like what's going on with them. Their earnings is going to be towards the end of the month in July, so we're probably going to see how this kind of plays out. I do think that this is going to be a $150 stock, but a nice little pullback will be needed. Maybe something like around the 95 to 90s, and then kind of give you another race to the upside. But if we get to the earnings cycle and they smash it, kind of like they did a good job over here, I could see this thing really start to rock it off and use 120, 125 as a support level. Another one is Uber. Uber has been doing this W is already played out. I think a lot of people took their profits off the table, but the fun part between the fact that Uber is where it is the fact that their earnings is coming up 61 cents with 12 billion in revenue. I know they're working on their autonomous vehicle and partnered with Waymo, so I want to hear more details in that in their earnings call. So that's going to be very interesting. And another one is CCJ. It popped up on my list recently as I was ending the day yesterday, and I was thinking about doing it and pulling the trigger and just slowly add some positions on this. But I'm gonna go ahead and kick my feet up and just relax a bit, because what CCJ is doing on this rise, it's not going to only stay up, but this golden cross is the one that's really what we're standing on. So I'm going to keep an eye on CCJ because I think they're going to try to break that $80. Let's go ahead and pull this all the way back, pull this all the way back, pull this all the way back, and you can see all-time highs. So that's why I'm a little apprehensive on trying to say, hey, anything more here. I would say I would rather go over to like a Wayfair, for example, that they're trying to recover and get back to their stride and maybe get to that $74 level. So that said, I think that's pretty much everything I have for y'all on the earnings cycle. Give y'all a little recap of this week. Let's see. And 3M was kind of solid. Yeah, I would say 3M is probably going to be key in my recap. Let's look at 3M. If y'all remember, I was talking about this as far as that 148 level. We got up into like 164. Community played it up to about 155, 156, and it was very, very, very solid of a move. Where does it go from here, right? And I think with the golden cross and this major cross over here, crossing my 800, it's still sound. I think there is going to be probably a pullback just so that way they can rebalance themselves. This was a solid inline earnings and everything else. Of course, their guidance is solid because they're looking for that. And as the days go by, I would like to see levels like probably around here and probably over here. Like these are areas that's going to be very interesting over time. But if we go into the monthly and bring my stochastic, I think a nice little cool down will be great, but I would not be surprised in the next 4 to 5 years that this here is going to be a $250 stock. I would not be surprised. All right, so that said, thank you very much for participating with BYTTT. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and the bell button. Down below, I have my charts. They're available for sale with a nice little discount code. Go ahead and get your charts. Comes with full plan and everything for your trades. And if you're not happy with the results, hey, get your money back. All you have to do is just send in the request, no questions asked, and have at it. Also, the one-on-ones are down below. Go ahead and book yourself a session. It ends on the end of the month, so we got another week before there will be no more one-on-ones until maybe September, give or take. So keep that in mind. So I want to say thank you. I'm at 310 subscribers. I would love for you to hit that like, subscribe. Tell your friends and family. Go ahead and subscribe as well, because that right there will help this YouTube algorithm. And that's the best way to support me. I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a great day, and I'll see y'all on Monday. Bye-bye.